all the talk about fighting for the soul of America, nobody seems to like it very much. Too many liberals give the impression that to them, America is just a big, ugh. The red, white, and ew. You know who's not constantly complaining about what happened 200 years ago and who's not obsessed with seeing America through colored glasses and shaking off the stench of what irredeemable, privileged assholes we are? Immigrants.
Bill Maher recently took aim at the political left for what he described as open contempt toward America, and his message hit hard. In the aftermath of last year's election, many liberals publicly severed relationships with anyone on the right, a reaction Maher warned could come back to haunt Democrats. On an episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, he argued that vilifying Trump voters amounts to hating half the country and, by extension, the nation itself. That's the core of his argument. Now let's unpack why it matters.
Too many liberals give the impression that to them, America is just a big, ugh. The red, white, and ew. A country that started out bad and will always be bad, founded on an unrelenting history of sucking and unable to change. But we have changed a lot. But I am a perspective guy, and that's what too much of the left has lost, perspective. 72% of black people under 30 are optimistic about their future in America, way more than white people the same age. And as far as the land goes, yes, I guess we could change the name of Captain America to Captain Stolen Land.
This is Bill Maher at his sharpest, delivering uncomfortable truths that cut through a long-standing narrative. For years, many black liberals have argued that true freedom in America remains out of reach and that opportunities for success are steadily shrinking. It's a bleak portrayal, repeated so often that it rarely questioned and widely treated as settled fact. Maher pushes back by relying on data rather than slogans or social media outrage. He points to evidence suggesting that this perception doesn't fully align with reality. Many black Americans report feeling hopeful about their personal futures, believe their lives are improving, and say they would not choose to live anywhere else in the world. This doesn't mean racism has disappeared or that real problems don't exist. It does mean the American story is more complex and far less hopeless than activists and media narratives often suggest. Maher's message is simple. Fear-driven narratives may attract attention, but they don't always reflect the full truth.
Honestly, to all the people who start every public event now with one of those land acknowledgments where they say, I'm standing on land that was stolen from the proud indigenous people of the Chumash tribe, I say either give it back or shut the f*** up.
Maher is clearly finished with what he sees as performative woke politics, and he no longer softening his criticism. He zeroes in on what he views as blatant hypocrisy. If public figures insist on beginning events by acknowledging they are standing on land once belonging to Native American tribes, Maher argues they should be willing to follow that logic to its conclusion, either return the land or stop pretending the gesture means something. He not attacking Native Americans, he calling out what he sees as empty symbolism. These ritual acknowledgments require no sacrifice, change nothing, and serve mainly to signal moral superiority rather than deliver real justice. That's why the practice feels hollow and even condescending. Real accountability, Maher contends, requires cost and commitment, not carefully scripted apologies read from a teleprompter. In contrast, woke politics has drifted into a kind of virtue theater, loud, self-assured, and disconnected from tangible results. Maher sees it plainly: empty gestures that make elites feel virtuous while avoiding real consequences. And he done indulging them.
But again, something like the free market is kind of synonymous with America. And if you don't like it, I don't know how you can say you love this country. You know who loves this country? You know who's not constantly complaining about what happened 200 years ago and who's not obsessed with seeing America through colored glasses and shaking off the stench of what irredeemable, privileged assholes we are? Immigrants.
Immigrants, by and large, are deeply grateful simply to make it to America. For all its imperfections, many see the country as their best opportunity for a better life. That perspective isn't rooted in privilege or ideology, it's shaped by lived experience. Many have seen corruption, repression, poverty, or violence firsthand. So when they arrive in the United States, they recognize opportunity where others fixate only on flaws. What frustrates Maher and many ordinary Americans is how easily that perspective is brushed aside by parts of the left. The same voices that preach gratitude and empathy often turn sharply against the country that gives them a platform. And let's be honest, much of that resentment appears driven less by policy outcomes than by political loss. America became irredeemable only after it elected Trump. Had Kamala Harris won, the narrative would likely be very different, celebrating the nation as compassionate, enlightened, and morally virtuous. The double standard is hard to miss, and immigrants often recognize it immediately.
Ask any of them why they came here, and they will tell you the same thing. Ron DeSantis put me on a plane. But they will also tell you that America, for all that's so shitty about it right now, is still the last best hope. And those people asking for our votes to take it over should remember that.
The contradiction, however, is hard to ignore. If the left truly believes America is broken, racist, and beyond repair, why the aggressive push to expand immigration? The two positions don't sit comfortably together. On one hand, the country is described as oppressive and morally bankrupt. On the other, it treated as a destination people should be encouraged to enter in greater numbers. If the United States were genuinely as bleak as critics claim, the logical response would be tighter borders, stricter limits, and clear warnings to stay away. Yet that isn't the approach. Because beneath the rhetoric lies an unspoken acknowledgement: America still offers opportunity, freedom, and upward mobility that few nations can rival. Even its harshest critics seem to recognize that the country is worth coming to, worth debating over, and ultimately, worth staying in.
If, for your exile, you do wind up in some comparatively luxurious place like Canada or Japan or the UK, not that they want you. At best, you'll be trading a bunch of stuff you hate about this country for a bunch of stuff you'll soon hate about your new home. It took me only 4 days in Amsterdam to learn that while I admire Amsterdam, I don't want to live there. The buildings are cramped and shaped like needles. The food is awful. The TV's in a different language. It's wet and cold. The people are polite but cold, and they do a bunch of weird. The explanation for, according to my friend, was just remember they're high.
When the noise fades the performative outrage, the constant moral posturing, one reality becomes clear: America remains an extraordinary place to live. Not perfect, not beyond criticism, but fundamentally different from much of the world in ways that truly matter. The freedoms Americans enjoy, speech, dissent, due process, opportunity, are not guaranteed elsewhere. They are rare, fragile, and often taken for granted by those who benefit from them most. Bill Maher's frustration speaks directly to that blind spot. It's difficult to credibly call a country evil while freely exercising protections others risk their lives to obtain. You cannot openly mock leaders, protest in the streets, challenge authority, and bend social norms with minimal consequences, then claim to be living under tyranny. Perspective matters. Immigrants understand it. People who have experienced real authoritarianism recognize it instantly. America's loudest critics often don't. That doesn't mean the country shouldn't strive to improve, it absolutely should. But real progress begins with honesty rather than exaggeration, and gratitude rather than contempt. The real danger isn't that America is uniquely oppressive, it's that its freedoms are so secure people forget they exist. And once that happens, losing them becomes far easier than anyone expects.
And arbitrary detentions are widespread in Cuba, Ecuador, El Salvador, Nicaragua. If you're wondering how that's just like no cash bail, it's not.
And this is the part so many people miss. The freedoms Americans often take for granted aren't guaranteed elsewhere, not even in Europe, which is frequently held up as morally superior. In the United States, free speech is a foundational right, not a permission granted by the state. You can criticize leaders, mock institutions, and express unpopular opinions without fearing a knock on your door. In countries like the United Kingdom, that boundary is far less defined. Laws there allow authorities to investigate or intervene over speech deemed harmful, inciting, or dangerous even when no violence is involved. That reality surprises many Americans because it clashes with what freedom is supposed to mean. This isn't about defending hate or chaos, it's about recognizing how rare true free expression actually is. Once speech becomes something the government can police based on feelings or political fashion, freedom erodes quickly. America's system isn't perfect, but its protections are exceptional. Lose sight of that, and you may not realize what's gone until it already lost. And with that, we've reached the end of today's video. If you found it worthwhile, hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this.